Okay, we'll call to order the February 22nd, 2021 Parks and Rec Commission meeting. And we will start as we always do with open time for public comment on any items that are not on tonight's agenda. I'm looking at the list. Yes, we do have some attendees, no hands raised. Do you have anything via email?
Let me check the email real quickly. We did not receive any emailed public comments, but I should probably take roll first before you continue with the rest.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Elson?
Here.
Commissioner Miles is absent. Commissioner Phipps?
Here.
Commissioner Ravazio?
Here. Here.
Commissioner McPherson? I'm not seeing her yet. Vice Chair Janowski?
Here.
Chair Blomgren?
Here. Thank you for that reminder. Okay, for agenda item 3 presentations, we have 3 presentations. The first one is from Public Works regarding an overview of Public Works roles and responsibilities and the town's capital improvement program, including a discussion of possible dog park enhancement options. I don't know if that's RJ or someone else, but go ahead and take it away.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, Chair Blomgren and commissioners. So yeah, we thought we'd spend some time today giving an overview of really all of the things that Public Works is working on. Obviously, we'll focus in on some of the Parks and Rec stuff as well. Just a general discussion of kind of the way we see our roles and responsibility, and then that's an open dialogue we can have as well. And then we have some also alternatives to start discussing, along with some cost estimates for possible solutions and improvements to the dog park. So that'll be the focus of our meeting, and then happy to touch on anything else that you feel is appropriate. So I'm gonna start with just the, I'm gonna share a screen here in a second. Just waiting for my Excel sheet to load up. All right, here we go. So a couple things that we wanted to just give a sense of, and just figured it'd be helpful, just so, I don't know, I think communication is always better. So whether it be the commissioners understanding all the things we're doing, or where, you know, the projects land with respect to kind of the other areas that we're supporting. But here's kind of an initial list of what we're focused on. We have it draft because we're still kind of fine tuning it at this stage of the year. We kind of trend on a kind of cyclical pattern where we're more in design mode now, but obviously as we get into drier months, we'll be moving into more construction where things get a lot more set in stone. But here's kind of the high level list, and you can see it's pretty busy. We've got a nice spread of multimodal projects. You know, that's your kind of bike ped vehicular improvement projects, kind of your road maintenance, just your standard paving plus ADA improvement project. We've got short list of flood control projects. Here in the orange, you can see those are the ones we're focusing on for Parks and Rec at the moment. Here we have some facility projects that we're doing. We also have a handful of sanitary district projects. So it's definitely an aggressive group of projects. Luckily, we have I have a great team who's very diligent, hardworking, and they have a great attitude and don't complain as much as maybe they ought to. And so that's all a great thing to have. At the same time, over the last year, looking back, we had a similar workload last year, and I definitely didn't do a good enough job of kind of shielding them and kind of prioritizing. And it was a challenge, especially with COVID and all the other things. something else I wanted to share, that list that I just kind of showed a flash of, that's really just kind of the big ticket items. But if you were to hone in on, and I don't expect everyone to read this, kind of focus in on just one person's workload, such as Jared, who's doing a phenomenal job. This is just Jared's list. So, I mean, he's really not only managing the lead on many projects, but also has these other responsibilities, whether it be liaison to our FEMA CRS group, or some of the development permit review projects he's doing, all sorts of things. So again, just trying to communicate, because at times we did get bogged down, and it's not because we don't care, and it's not because we don't want to do the work. It's just, you know, sometimes it gets too much. Moving on to one more list, and then we can bring it back. But we have this one that we prepared recently called Other Achievements. And this was really looking at what we had set out to do as a department. And that was kind of, you know, for instance, the base list that you saw. And then as the year progressed, we were asked to do a number of other things because this town has so many great ideas. And because we like to be crowd pleasers, we jumped on a bunch of them. But, you know, here we ended up with, you know, another 25, 26 additional projects that at the onset of the year we hadn't planned on taking on, but just kind of found their way into the work plan. And some maybe were urgent matters, and others we might have been able to kind of defer and kind of plan out a little bit over the long term. But I guess this is kind of maybe one of the areas that I'm trying to reduce that a little bit. Again, if it's urgent and it needs to happen, then absolutely we'll do everything we can to make it happen. But for things that, you know, have the tendency to maybe involve a little more planning or take a little more effort, maybe push those funding a fiscal year or two. So that's kind of my initial intro. And before we shift, I did want to see if you had any questions going back to that. Oops, let's not jump there yet. That initial spreadsheet, just about kind of what we have. And these are kind of the bigger ticket items for Parks and Rec. Sorry, bear with me, this one. So really it's, you know, definitely come up with a plan and hopefully implement that plan if we can get everyone on a consensus related to the dog park surface. You know, help those that are leading the effort, Louise and others, as much as we can through the design of the town park plaza. But then once it gets to a point where we bid and implement, you know, we see ourselves taking a much larger role in that. And then also one other note that may or may not have been shared prior is we're also going through and doing a slurry seal to all of or most of the paths throughout town park and nearby. And so that's happening likely in the June timeframe. So I maybe this is a good time to open it up if there's anything we're missing. Some of the smaller efforts that might be ongoing aren't shown here, but I'm happy to discuss anything you think ought to be on the list that's not, or anything, any feedback you have on this. Would love to have that conversation. Seeing a lot of smiles, so I think that means
I'll weigh in, okay, RJ.
Go ahead,
no, Louise, I just want to thank you for being available, because I have flung a number of questions your way, and this is part of being a new commissioner. I'm not as familiar with the process, and so I really appreciate you and Jared being available, and Brian and the building department being available for those questions. And I know that we have a lot that we are trying to achieve this year. So if there are things that we could be doing better, more efficiently, I hope that you will push back on us as well, because the things that you've gotten done, I mean, the town is noticing. I'm hearing from everybody that I'm, you know, in school groups and mom groups, and everybody's noticing all the work that's getting done and is incredibly appreciative. So I think you guys should, hopefully, if you're not getting that direct feedback, know that it's being seen and valued by the community at large. And at the same time, you know, we have a lot of things that we want to get done in Park and Rec. So help us help you by helping us, you know, with the process that works for you, and pushing back on us when we're pushing too hard. More comment than a question.
And I think that's the challenge, because we do get a lot of good feedback and we like the work that we do, and we like delivering the projects that you guys and the ideas you come up with. But there's that fine line where it just cuts too much, it becomes too much. So some of that's on us, and then obviously, yeah, we'll communicate when we know we're at our breaking point, or hopefully before then.
Maybe one thing to do is to just put us off. You know, if we come to you and we want stuff to happen, say, yes, but you're going to have to wait. It's not going to happen right away. Because I think we're in the mode where we know we have this fabulous staff. And so while you are here, before you get snatched up by wherever you're going to go next, we want to get these great things done while Corte Madera is rolling. So, but definitely, you know, put us off if you have to. We can take it.
Appreciate that. Any other feedback? Great. Okay. And this is kind of an open dialogue. So if there's anything you think of as we get going, we can always, you know, take a step back and open it up. So yeah, and then the other one, and kind of, I guess, a good example to use would be a project like the Town Park Plaza, to kind of discuss roles and responsibilities. But yeah, I think kind of, I view our role as somewhat of a engineering consultant to Parks and Rec Commission. So really, you know, we want to be there in the discussion at the various checkpoints when it comes to feasibility, when it comes to cost estimates. Those are really where we're most efficient and where we thrive. You know, sure, we're gonna, you know, as tied to a project, we'll do the public noticing and some of that outreach, but some of that building of community consensus really isn't going to be our strength or most efficient area. So we're kind of looking on, you know, Ashley and her team and/or the commissioners to kind of work through those and then give us feedback. And then we kind of have this back and forth where we assist each other. As we move through the planning process, warranted design, you know, we start to get a little more involved. You know, maybe there's a little bit of a shift where we're coming to you with, you know, updated iterations of designs or plans. Obviously, the Town Park Plaza, you know, Louise has her expertise and is kind of leading that in a slightly different fashion than, say, a dog park project. And then eventually we'll get to a point where we need to bid it and build it. And so that's where we'll more or less take over with the bidding, make sure that we're satisfying all the local, state regulations, you know, all the prevailing wage and other things that we need to do to procure a contractor. And then we'll manage the work and make sure that it's done according to the design and to our standards and all of those things. So I would see that, you know, if assuming you would want us to, we would, you know, as that project, for instance, gets close to the finish line in design, we would take over and really run it through the implementation phase. So that's kind of just a general look at how we approach our projects. Any questions or any dialogue we want to have about kind of those steps and roles? Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll kick it. I'm going to let Jared. Jared's prepared some exhibits and alternatives and tables on the dog bark. And he's going to go into kind of a executive overview, and then I'll follow up with a little details about kind of the maintenance side and longer range costs.
All right. Thank you, RJ. Yeah, so here on your screen, you can see an aerial view of the dog park, as most of you are well aware. The outline in yellow kind of shows the existing fence and where the hatched regions are, there's kind of two. We've kind of more or less broken it up, a left or west area, and then an east area for the purposes of this discussion. But ultimately, taking a step
Jared,
back, what we have is grass there.
Jared, before we jump all into the alternatives, actually, do you want to maybe give some perspective or thoughts on maybe your observations over the last few months, and maybe even it would be good to hear from some of the commissioners or the public on what they've seen over the last few months. I think that would be helpful to the dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll start with a couple notices, over the rainy months. Obviously, it used to be green grass flourishing, kind of how the rest of the town park looked or looks, and that's how it started when we first fenced in this entire perimeter. We've got quite a bit of rain, so now the grass is more or less gone in many.
I don't know. That's
areas. It's still, quite a bit of bare ground mud, after rain. That's just a real quick.
Jared, we might have lost you for maybe 10, 15 seconds. So
I'm back, maybe.
Oh. Yeah, we lost you right about.
So
you were just explaining green grass in the rest of town park, and then we lost you for a little bit.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so it started as green grass like the rest of town park, but with the heavy rains and winter seasonal moisture, it's degraded to quite a bit of bare ground and mud for a significant portion of this east area. The west area still is populated with a little bit of grass, but it's definitely sparse as well. That's pretty much what I was mentioning. So then I wanted to also turn it over to maybe some of the other commissioners' feedback as far as if they've witnessed it recently too.
Go ahead, Pat. I see it.
Well, I walk over there a lot, and I talk to people who are there with their dogs quite often. And yeah, we've definitely had, somebody suggested we name it the mud pit. They were having fun, and thank goodness you put that dog wash hose in there. It is an absolute godsend. The dogs get all muddy, and the humans tend to stay out of the mud, which I was pretty glad to see, that they stand around the sides and they let the dogs run around in the mud. And some of them don't have a problem with it at all. They think it's great. And those who do have a problem with it, I've heard some people on my block tell me they just don't go anymore. They're waiting for it to get dry again. So, it's sort of self-correcting in some ways. I mean, unless we really have a real problem with mud. I mean, I thought the chips going in were good. And I did go there once when it was obvious that there could to be some more chips put in. But I just think economically speaking, looking at all the options, I don't know. I don't see where it's a good idea even if you put in an artificial turf or try to build up the grass, I think that's just going to get torn up again. So I don't know. I'm gonna leave it as it is kind of person so far, but I'm interested in hearing what anyone else thinks, because I might be wrong. I don't know.
I'll just give a little bit of commentary on what I've noticed. So we had a fairly late rainy season and pretty light, I would say, up until just recently. And so things were, I felt, holding together reasonably well until maybe it was mid-November or so, when we got that first big rain, and then the mud pit started. And I think it was early December, we brought in 2 loads of mulch, which each load's about 10 cubic yards, just to get a sense of what that is. And then we also then brought in another load last week. So those are definitely kind of the Band-Aids of just kind of keeping it the minimal usable before we make a big decision to shift in any sort of different direction, should we choose to shift. And then also, you know, the drainage there is kind of been a work in progress. At times our crew has had to manually go in and turn off or on or off the irrigation, because on one hand, the water is good to support the grass growth. On the other hand, it adds water to the equation. And then once that hits the dirt and dogs track it, then we get the mud. So there's a little bit of a balance there they're working through. But that's some of what we've seen thus far. And then, you know, some dogs like to dig, so we spend some time filling on holes. And I know we have some dirt there that volunteers can also fill in, which is great. But that's just kind of some of the issues we've seen to date as we kind of go about it with this more simplistic approach. Does anyone else have any observations they want to discuss or add to the mix?
Yeah, RJ, you were talking about the rainfall and the what it is compared to normal, and it's way below half of average rain so far this year. It's about 45%. So a normal year or anything above a normal year will be catastrophic for the dog park. So I think the French drain is something we've discussed in the past. I think that's a great idea, and I think it's probably necessary for a normal year for sure. And I think the other options look really good. Anybody who spends time on the trails around here knows that the least muddy trails are the ones that are on this sort of tan sandstone type rocks. So you might consider some fine sand mix into mulch. I think that promotes drainage through the mulch. But overall, I think this looks like a great addition to the park to help it dry out faster.
This is Aline, and I have not been there since it, you're saying it turned into a mud pit, but I have been to that Red Hill San Anselmo dog park, which is mostly, you know, wood chips and stuff. And I think that works pretty well year round there. And also I thought I'd heard that they get some free mulch that lowers the cost. I don't know if that's available to us, but yeah, and I agree about the sand. That's a good idea, just to create some drainage. But I've just seen the mulch work really well, and it's such a popular park. It seems to be working there.
Other feedback that's been received from a code enforcement engagement perspective is that some of the people that might be utilizing off leash in the park area might be going there based on that the dog park itself was too muddy. Or it could be just an excuse.
Yeah, I'll touch on a little bit on the mulch. You know, and I'm definitely not a mulch expert. I know when it comes to playgrounds, we use a very specific engineered mulch or wood chip it's got all the right amount of balance should a kid fall, and then it doesn't splinter as much and all those things. So we did have an opportunity as part of our Redwood Highway path improvement project to use some of that mulch over here at the dog park. And just because we didn't fully know the consequences, we chose not to. Doesn't mean we couldn't research that and see if a free mulch would be an option. But the mulch material itself isn't terribly expensive. So obviously we're always trying to save some money, but it's that part of the equation is for the entire dog park is a few $1,000s. So we'll get into that, and then I think maybe does anyone else have any comments before I have Jared walk through the alternatives, the initial alternatives we came up with? Okay, take it away, Jared.
All right, yeah. So basically there's 5 total options that we're really looking at here. 1 through 3 are 100% coverage of each various different materials. So option 1, 100% natural grass. That would be us going back in and, taking out what is remaining of existing partial grass coverage and mud, tilling it up, and then putting down a sod material. And then obviously there's a time that would have to take root. And so the dog park would be closed for a period of time. I think we're probably looking at about 2 to 4 weeks for something like that. And that would be, go on, RJ.
I was gonna say we on that scenario, we're assuming just about a third would be natural grass sod, and then the rest we would just seed and try to revive.
Okay, yeah, and the seeded part would take a lot longer than the sod, and that seeded part would, be cordoned off to any park users until it's available to be walked on and has a little bit of resilience. But okay, so that's option one, and we would probably implement a 3 to 5 month closure during the rainy season, just to preserve it. That 3 to 5 range there would really depend on when the rainy season hits, how heavy the rains are, that sort of stuff. But more or less a closure through the winter rains, just to keep that in a good condition, so that when it becomes springtime or sun comes out more, then be able to jump right in and use the park uninterrupted.
And kind of similar to how we handle the sports fields, we do shut those down for about 3 months because of all the tracking from playing sports. It typically needs that much time to kind of revive itself. Now, we say 3 to 5 just because we don't fully know if dogs track it more, or if there was a decision to maybe close half of the park at a time so half of it could remain. Maybe you would have, one side closed for 2.5 months and another then for 2.5 months. So there's all sorts of iterations of how we might go about this kind of remain natural approach. But I think we're kind of going in with the assumption that to get it to fully revive, it's going to take about 3 months collectively over a calendar year.
And then the regular maintenance items, it's pretty obvious. We're going to be mowing the grass, we're watering the grass, but I did want to mention those because they're not present for some of the other options. So just wanted to point that out. And then the filling holes, as RJ had mentioned. But looking at initial costs, so just to get that implemented for this initial upfront effort, ballpark of 41,000, 42,000 plus or minus to get that going for a natural grass option. So the option 2 is 100% artificial turf, and we haven't ironed out exact manufacturer or specific details of the turf. That would be a later discussion, but just going with the general turf option. Routine closure, not significant, less than a week, and regular maintenance. Leaves will fall, but they won't really blend into the material like grass, so we have to regularly maintain by blowing the leaves off. Got to broom the turf. That's pretty regular maintenance as well, and the addition of sand on top of it, and that's just to keep the turf kind of that realistic feel, so that it kind of somewhat resembles actual grass in the cush and the touch. As you'd expect, the turf is a little bit pricier option right out of the gate, and that's just using a kind of a ballpark per square footage cost that we threw at it. But $170,000 is definitely something to really consider in the whole discussion. It's the most expensive upfront. And then looking at the third full option of mulch, it would be less than a week, and that's just to keep the the heavy rains we consider closing, that sort of stuff. But regular maintenance is simply just the reapplication process as dogs use it, as it kind of degrades and starts to disintegrate into the soil underlining it, it's going to need to get freshened up. And that sort of rate, we don't know exactly, but we were thinking on the once a year kind of realm. That's kind of what we've initially thought to be the case when we first put it in. We'd put in a pretty thick, durable layer of it, so it would be susceptible to dogs running around and kicking it around, and maybe there's a little bit of user kind of flattening it out or just keeping it in check, or filling in any holes that get dug in it and that kind of stuff. But we'd have a larger effort to reapply some on a regular basis.
Yeah, and to add a little context, and this will come through in the next table. So we have about $25,000 set aside for French drains, which we are applying to all options that you see there. And so take 25, and then what's left over is the other pieces of that project. So really the mulch is about $5,000 to mulch the entire area, where 25 is the initial French drain investment. So in subsequent years, and I'm not sure it would even be every year. Maybe it might even be every other. You're looking at about another $5,000 for a reapplication.
And the mulch option, we have it listed as $30,000, and I mean it's pretty easy and straightforward. That's what kind of yields the low cost there. Nothing too fancy. So there's options 1, 2, and 3, full coverage for each one of those various materials. Options 4 and 5 are kind of a hybrid. So both of them involve a portion to be natural grass on the west area. And then they differ in that the east area for option 4 would be artificial turf, and the east area for option 5 would be the mulch. So I want to say half and half, but it's not quite half and half. You can kind of see in the background, it's about 8,000 square foot on the east area and 6,400 square feet on the west area. So maybe 60-40 or something. But looking at the routine park closure column, it's similar for the natural grass portion, as you would expect, that closure for the winter months. But the difference here is that can be closed, and the east area can remain open and operable for the the winter time for the most part. So that's a benefit of options 4 and 5. Similar regular maintenance is needed for the respective materials that we just discussed, options 1 through 3. And then the costs there are, as you would expect, it's a little higher for the natural grass or the artificial turf and natural grass option because of the artificial turf portion. And option 5 is a little bit more affordable. So that's a high level kind of look at just the 5 options that we initially studied. And if there's any other specific questions or other options that we didn't consider that we can look into, let us know.
Unless there's any clarifying questions, what I'm going to do is then kind of roll this into the spreadsheet where we start to think about longer term costs and maintenance, and then we can bring it back and answer all questions. One clarifying before we leave this screen is initially I was thinking at least maybe of using the kind of core 50% as the hybrid, but based on observations and based on the drainage, we tended to see more muddy conditions kind of all the way on this east area. So that kind of shaped kind of how we went about selecting the zones. But again, there's some wiggle room if there's a reason to shift one way or another. So I'm gonna share screen now if I can.
And quickly to preface for the commission, this is purely informational and discussion. We really want the feedback. And then at the next meeting, we would plan to have a staff report and bring you some actual things to review and make any recommendations for council to review.
So are you able to see this one? The whole spreadsheet, hopefully. So this is, this yellow column is what Jared was speaking to. And so those are the, upfront costs. Again, about 25,000 is the French drain and the kind of bioswales that we're recommending there. We did take talking to our maintenance team and running some costs, we did take an estimate at the yearly maintenance. So this, for instance, on the natural grass side assumes that about a third of the area would have to be resodded. And then as it's being resodded, it's going to get a lot of water and likely be delineated off from the other parts of the active park. And then in addition to that, there's we have about $12,000 on maintenance. That's about an hour a day for one of our guys. Going down on the 100% fake turf, talking to our team, we think the maintenance goes down by about a third. Should we go to artificial turf? Because now we're just really kind of leaf blowing is really the only kind of regular daily task, or every other daily if it's leaves aren't falling. The mulch is about equivalent to the natural grass because there's raking and blowing of the mulch. So those are about comparable. And then this does have built in kind of that once every 2 to 3 year, just kind of topping off of mulch built into that yearly maintenance plan. And then taking a similar approach, we just applied those numbers based on kind of the proportions. So, instead of $12,000 worth of labor and effort on the natural grass side, if we now have a hybrid, it's closer to 8. So anyway, we wanted to have something to consider. And so that really kind of expands out as you look into kind of all-in costs over 5 and 10 years. We also did want to kind of discuss some of the pros and cons as we know it. And I'm sure there's some that are out there that we may not even be aware of. But yeah, the big one on the natural grass is I think we have to kind of go in assuming that in order for it to be nice and pristine, it kind of has to be each area to actually grow and revive itself is going to take about 3 months. So whether we do 100% shutdown for 3 months or whether we do half and half, that's all up for discussion, but that's kind of our expectation. Fake turf, it gets hot. So especially when you have a hot day and direct sunlight, it could be hot for the surface possibly to the point where it might be too hot for dogs. That's, I've had some myself, and I know there were times it felt like it was walking on beach sand. So just something to be aware of. There are some cool yarn options out there, and maybe that technology has gone further since I've last seen it. And there's even some where they talk about it's almost like a straw that it's almost like a hollow straw. So because air is an insulator, it actually keeps it cooler. I haven't personally seen that one directly for myself, so I can't speak a whole lot to it, but I think it's an interesting concept. And then, I've heard of reasons why people don't like mulch, and I don't know all of them, but I can imagine they could get in dogs' fur, and maybe the dogs chew and eat them, or maybe they splinter and get caught in their paws, and perhaps there's others, but just kind of throwing it all out on the table with what we know about the various options. So and I think with that, happy to open it up for any questions or discussion, just so we can kind of hopefully narrow in and focus on some refinements.
So any questions or comments from commissioners?
RJ, I have a quick question. I mean, this is really helpful. Thank you for all the time you put into showing us the options and the costs and everything. I'm kind of curious on number 5, why would it more than triple between the 5 to 10 year when, if I look at just the grass, it's kind of, double-ish, but is that just a proportion of the park that's covered? Because it seems kind of surprising.
Yeah, so much more. Again, our assumption was that even with a 3-month period, we're still probably about a third of the natural grass is gonna get sodded. And whereas the other 2/3, we're going to let it heal with kind of watering and seeding it and letting it rest. So year over year, and we're kind of using $3 a square foot when you include labor. I think the material itself is around $1 or so, but you got to till it and you got to lay it down, you got to roll it. So there's a whole effort there. But again, it was based on 1/3 of a natural grass would get done each year. Sure, if that number comes down, then so would your 5 and 10 year costs. But that was just our starting point, was about 1/3. And similarly, if it's the whole thing or half the area is natural grass, you're still going to mow. You're still going to get the mower out. So there's only so much saving when you reduce down the size.
So RJ, just to revisit the process that got us to this park in the first place, we did a ton of research about other nearby parks in the same kind of climate. And one conclusion we had is that natural grass doesn't survive dog parks, no matter how much you try. And looking at things like Larkspur, Sausalito, or Civic Center. So our expectation was that the grass would not be a long-term feature. The other thing that we pointed out was that it is pretty muddy in the rainy season, and that we suggested the possibility of French drains, which you're looking at now. And now you're looking at the mulch surface, which we discussed, and that makes sense. And the only thing I added was the addition of a mix of some small amount of sand to the mulch will increase the permeability and increase the drainage to those French drains. But I just wanted to remind everyone that we were trying to keep the annual costs down, and that natural grass was never our promise or expectation, because it's so hard to keep alive under dog feet. Any other commissioner comments before we see if there's anybody from the public who wants to comment?
Well, we get to come back at the end if there's after public comments, because usually we hold our comments until after the public speaks, right? And then
if you have something further after the public, then that'll be fine.
Thank you.
Is there anything from the public in attendance? I see a hand from David McPherson.
I did receive an email to public comment, so I will read it if that person does not raise their hand to read the comment.
Okay, and I see a hand from David McPherson.
Mute. All right, I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. RJ, it's particularly helpful that you did the 10-year budget, because I would not have thought that the delta between mulch and artificial would be as small as it is. But then, you wisely took into account all of the maintenance of mulch. So if the decision is made to go with artificial turf, that certainly seems to be the most attractive. It'll stand up to the wear and tear of dogs. And I would suggest that is the budget-wise makes the most sense over the 10-year or maybe perhaps even longer lifespan of that artificial turf. If the town decides to go with mulch, you might look at the piece of property behind Red Boy Pizza, which is a parcel of land adjacent to where Larkspur intends to build its library. And at least 4 years ago, they placed mulch there. And we use that a lot to run our dog, because it's long. It's probably 150 yards long. And I've been impressed over the last 4 years that virtually no weeds have come up. Maybe they've got weed blocker below it, but the style of mulch that they purchased and installed there seems to hold up really well to dogs. And I know there's certainly many different types of mulches that you can buy. And I just think you should take a good look at that. That particular style of mulch seems to work well. Thanks.
Thank you. And Rebecca, you said there was one more email comment.
Yes. I received an email to public comment at tcmmail.org from Matthew Thompson, who is currently an attendee in the meeting, but unless he pops his hand up, I'll just go ahead and read. Ah, his hand is up. All right. Hello.
Hey there. Yeah, thanks for taking my comment. I just wanted to say that we got a dog back in September or so, and have been at the dog park. You know, it really is wonderful. I did want to thank the council for doing that. It's pretty awesome. We walk to it in the mornings, and for quite a while we were there every single morning. You know, and sometimes even also in the evenings. And there was a big crowd there. And when the rain started, it's pretty much fallen into, you know, almost complete disuse. Like it's, while some people do go out there rarely, you're kind of committing to giving your dog a hose down or a bath. And so we stopped going, and there have been months where we haven't gone at all. And so, you know, having some alternative other than natural grass, where I think closure for 3 to 5 months might even be optimistic. You know, we're at 50% of rainfall this year, and it's, you know, it's already been 3 to 5 months of, you know, not being so awesome. So, you know, from my perspective, my preference would be artificial turf, or an artificial turf natural grass hybrid, which, you know, may not be great because of the added cost of the natural grass. But just from our, you know, from my feelings, certainly like having the artificial turf would be preferable over everything else. I understand it might be hot some days, but, you know, not going a couple of hot days is nothing compared to not going for, you know, 5 months or 6 months or something like that. You know, I don't know if anybody else here is in attendance, you know, from the public, but, you know, we just haven't seen many people there at all. And it would be great to be able to use it more in a sort of year-round perspective. And yeah, thanks to everybody. That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think that was all from the email and the attendees. Did any other commissioners have any final comments or questions?
Yeah, I was taking some notes as you were talking. Thank you so much for doing this thorough exploration. I wasn't really expecting this, but I love the idea of the French drain. I like that you put that in every scenario. It does seem like the first line of defense to get some of the moisture out of the property. But as far as sod, I mean, I may have been there at unusual times, but there are huge dogs coming to this park, and they are tussling and fighting with each other and digging, and I just can't see sod making it. Even if you, especially if you close the park and let it sit for 3 to 5 months, and then the dogs are going to go in, they're still going to be able to just pull it up. But so I would love, if we're going to do anything like sod or even artificial turf, I would really like to understand that it actually does hold up to dogs in another, that there's a dog park that we can show where it has been successful, because I think even turf will get pretty badly beat up pretty quick by the big dogs that are in there. So I don't think a 3 to 5 month closure is acceptable or necessary. I did like the idea of somehow alternating sides, like letting this one rest while we let the dogs play on the other side. As far as the turf goes and the expense of the turf, I finally got convinced that we needed to do it on our kids' soccer fields, at least have one good soccer field in Town Park that was usable all year round. And as much as I love dogs, I think the kids need to come first. And I think if we were to sod over this dog park before we give the parents a break from all the goose poop that their kids get all over them, because we know the geese poop where they eat, and they don't do it on sod because there's nothing to eat on the sod. So I mean on the turf. So I would think the turf would not be a good solution here. I do think the chips are like the, you know, necessary evil a little bit. Maybe there are other things we can do. Can we put down some fresh hay, bring in some hay bales? I don't know. I think keeping the grass on the uphill side, that having a lot of artificial turf where it's hilly, I think is another big issue, and sod where it's hilly is going to be, I think, just destroyed overnight. So I just would love to see some more, just a little bit of testimonial for how artificial turf works, if that really is going to be a real consideration here. So I think that's it.
Can I jump in really quickly and just say, Pat, I really appreciate you bringing up the turf field, because as you know, that's been on my wish list and many, many others for a long time. And I do feel like spending $200,000 for the dog park to get turf artificial before we get Eastfield done is really going to sting for a lot of people. Although I'm not saying it's not, it might be the perfect solution for the dog park, but I really, really want us to keep trying to focus. I know you're busy, RJ, with your list, and we've got funding concerns, but it would be wonderful.
I just want to say that I know when we started this project that the public and many commissioners thought it was important for the park to be open year round. And just listening to some of those comments reminded me of that from the public today. So I would like our choice to be something that takes that into account.
Okay, well, I think that's the rounds. I think I speak for everyone, and thank you, Public Works, for all their work, really looking at the details of all this. And as Commissioner House said, or as Chair House said, we'll be looking at this issue at a future meeting and nothing to vote on tonight.
Yeah, if I could just, I was going to respond to one comment, just the sod getting pulled up. We would look at wider rolls. Sometimes you can get them as wide as 15 feet. So if you're going after a big area, that's just less edges to pull up. Not saying that it might not get pulled up by a big enough dog, but it's not the 1 by 5 foot squares with tons of edges. So just something to be aware of.
Great, thanks everybody. So that brings us to agenda item 3B. And we have Christina Martin, who's going to talk about social media engagement and Corte Madera FC Football Club.
I'm going to pull up the slides presentation, and I just wanted to preface it that we also have Frank Bernardi on as a panelist, and he manages our soccer program, so he's going to be able to add any questions and answers regarding that portion of the presentation. So let me get this up for you. Can everyone see it all right?
Yep, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, Ashley. Okay, so hi, my name is Christina Martin. I work for the Parks and Rec Department. I've been there for about 15 years now. And I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update about kind of some of the stuff we've been working on recently. So Ashley, if you, we want to talk about social engagement, marketing, and the Corte Madera Football Club. So if you go ahead and go to the second slide. So some of the goals and priorities that we've laid out for our social media engagement and marketing have been making consistent, thorough, and polished posts to any of our social media accounts. These accounts include Facebook, our Instagram, Nextdoor, and we're currently actually working on debuting a YouTube channel. It is already up, but we're not kind of ready to put it completely out there, but we have been working on it. Our digital activity guide, town newsletters, department emails that we've been sending out, and the town website. So go to the next one. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, I give you a little bit of then and now. So on the left side, you'll see some of our older marketing. This was kind of back before 2019. We used to market in this style. This is generally how we would do our paper marketing, all of our flyers that you would see around town, in the front of our building. And you'll see that those flyers have a lot of information on them, including the dates, the times, how to register, and just a lot of information. So in the past, probably since about March. If you look to the right, this is sort of how we're marketing now. So we've kind of polished our marketing a little bit, and you'll notice also that all the images on the right are actually in square formation. And that's because we're actually being able to use this marketing across platforms in this manner. And you'll also notice that there's not a lot of words on any of this. And that's because we've kind of changed our marketing model a little bit, where all of the information goes into the post rather than into the photo. So people can just look at the picture and kind of say, oh, that's interesting, and click on it to find out more. These 3 images on the right are actually 3 of our most popular viewed and liked post from the last year. So you'll see we have the Barks for Parks. This is kind of around the time that we were promoting the dog park. Our kids Capoeira camp, which is really popular, along with the We're Always Just a Phone Call Away, which is part of our senior calls that we do, letting the public know that we're there for them in any way. So if you go to the next slide, Ashley. So again, this is our social media engagement. Increase the frequency of post and improve quality, increase the followers, comments, likes, and shares. So you'll see this graph here shows the likes, posts, and followers from Facebook, Instagram post, and Instagram followers. You'll notice that the blue represents, the dark blue color represents 2019. Unfortunately, the Facebook didn't have that for us in their stats. But you can see the Instagram post along with Instagram followers is pretty low for that year. You'll notice the magenta is our 2020 outreach, and then the teal color is our 2021. And that's pretty considerable considering that we're only in February in 2021. So we do expect that to go quite a bit higher throughout this next year. So our Facebook increased engagement, you should notice the large jump from March 2020 to Feb 2021. The total page likes as of, I believe it was on the 18th, was 678 on our Facebook. And you'll see that that's a major jump from what we had prior. That's kind of around the time that I came on to help with some of the social media and marketing. So we'd like to continue to see that go up as the next year goes on. And this is our Instagram. So this is actually the front page of our Instagram, I believe as of the 18th. So I believe that was just a couple of days ago. So the increased engagement, in 2019, we had 8 posts and 99 followers. And we actually had to create a new account in 2020, which we've actually got up to 175 posts and 539 followers as of 2020. And then over the last 2 months, we've had 194 posts. So just the increase from the 75 to 94. And then we have 593 followers. So that's a 50 plus increase in just 2 months over our Instagram account. Okay, and this is where, unless anybody has any questions about the social media, I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the Corte Madera Football Club, which is our soccer program. Okay, I'll keep going. So our goals and priorities that we've laid out for this year, this is more also specific, not just for our clinic, but overall, is to improve our communication and collaboration between the department and the staff of the soccer program leadership. So that'll be Frank when he has a moment to talk to us. We planned on improving the client registration experience, the efficiency, communication. Over the years, as I came to the front desk, we realized that a lot of different people were communicating with families and even the soccer program, and having it, I'm kind of the only one right now corresponding with families and soccer, which I think makes it easier and helps to streamline. So there's one person getting back to people and not 3 or 4 different people who might not be touching base with each other. And we're confirming all participants have waivers this year, especially with COVID. We're working really hard to get all of those participants' waivers in, signed correctly, and have them before the start date of the program. We also have, besides just having the clinics, we also have the summer camp, which is, I think, going to be pretty big this year, along with our regular fall recreation league and our competitive league, which are, the fall seems to be the largest program that we have for soccer currently. So for the spring clinics in particular, we have seen a giant increase in registration, as this graph is going to show you. So in 2019, we had 113 people registered. Last year, we only had 44. A lot of that had to do with COVID pullout because COVID was happening right in the latter part of the clinic. So we had a lot of partial refunds that year. But this year we have 400 plus registered already for this clinic, which is an enormous jump. So we're really excited to see that. And we're really excited about this year's clinics. And then here I've provided a little bit of a breakdown for you so you guys can see kind of the residency demographic that we have. So in 2019, we served 67 Corte Madera families, 28 Larkspur families, 15 Marin County families, and only 3 non-Marin County families. In 2020, we had 26 Corte Madera families, 13 Larkspur, Greater Marin County, we had 4, and outside Marin County, we only served 1. This year, we're serving 189 Corte Madera residents, 101 Larkspur residents, and 103 Marin County residents, and only 7 out of Marin County residents. So we are still, as you can see to the right of that graph, we are majorly serving our community. And that concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, let me know, or I think Frank might even talk a little bit about the difference between the clinics and our fall and the different kinds of things that we do during that time.
One of the hot questions is always, so Frankie, while you're unmuting yourself, one of the hot questions is always, what's the difference between recreation and competitive league and where people register their children? So maybe that can catalyst you into answering a couple of questions.
Well, you know, I think that our fall soccer program, be it rec or competitive, is really much higher as far as the kids from Corte Madera and Larkspur. I think these clinics, it's sort of a catch-all. You know, there's not a lot going on. And so people from different areas, maybe they go to school with our kids or friends, they come in. So I was a little surprised to see that we had 100 kids from Marin County and a few from others. But I do think that our fall soccer program, the main program, is, I would have to say 90% at least Corte Madera Larkspur kids. So I think we have a huge gap there. You know, look, this program was, I've been with this program for 9 or 10 years now, and it started from very little, and it's just blossomed, you know. It's gone from less than 300 kids the first year to not last year because of COVID, but the year before we had 1,200 kids playing in our program, and it's incredible. And it's, you know, last year with COVID, the spring clinic actually had 230 kids that had signed up, but when COVID hit, we had to stop it, you know, after like 3 weeks, and so we had to refund people their money. It's why it's showing really low. But you know, this year, last year we went on to have a fall program, and we got over 800 kids, and they couldn't even scrimmage. They couldn't even play, you know? And so there's just a lot of people interested. There's a lot of activity, a lot of excitement. And I do feel that this coming year is going to be a big year for us. You know, the spring clinic, you know, has already gone in 2 years from 100 kids to over 400. And I expect our fall program to be in the 1,200 range again. We are having some summer camps. There's 2 of them. They're back to back. They're going to be right after school. It's going to be June 14th through 18th, and then the next week, whatever those numbers are. And we've already got, you know, quite a few people signed up. And as the season starts, I think we'll get more. So basically, our program, you know, it's to serve the community of Corte Madera and Larkspur. You know, we started out with a recreation program, and after the first year, people came to me saying, look, we want to have a competitive program here. And quite honestly, I just said, look, Tiburon's just over the hill. They have a great program. They need kids, go there. But, you know, people want to play at home. They wanted to have that competitive experience here at home. And so we started with just 7 teams, and now our competitive teams are up to about 27, 28 teams, somewhere around there. You know, total, we put together over 100 teams in the fall. So it's just really growing. The thing that makes it work is that we have good people that run it. I have to say, Christina is a godsend. She works much, much too hard. But without, you know, a lot of these programs really wouldn't function so nicely. She puts in a lot of time. And, you know, when you deal with so many families, there's just a lot of stuff that happens, you know, good, bad, and different. And she's very good in dealing with that. But we do have a really nice rec program. And the majority of our kids are recreational players, you know, and it's great. You know, I mean, you don't have to be a good player to enjoy playing, you know, and most of our kids just love being with their friends. They love being out there, having a uniform on, and quite honestly, some of them, I'm not sure they know what sport they're playing, but they're out there and they're having fun, you know, and the competitive aspect of it is a little more serious group, you know, a little bit better skilled, and we have an excellent group of trainers. So we've got a guy that's played in 2 World Cups, got another guy that is a professional from Peru. We have some really good trainers, but the thing that makes it work is that all of us clearly want to do what's best for the kids. It's not about making money. It's not about all these things. It's about serving these kids in the best way we can. And I think people feel that, and it works. It works. It's growing. It's growing. And you know, everywhere I go, people keep saying how good it is and how well we're doing. So I'm really proud of the program. It's not a one-man show. There are other people responsible on the competitive side. As I mentioned, Christina and Brian takes care of all the fields and stuff. So there are people that are doing this, but it really is a nice program. And you know, as luck would have it, you know, I remember when I first started, I was told, look, doesn't matter if it makes any money, just pay your bills. All we care about is that we have a great program, you know, and I think we've accomplished that. And as a sideline, we make money for the town. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good program. Of course, I'm a little biased, but I do like it. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any of them. Last thing I'll say is I was glad to hear somebody say about putting turf for the kids as opposed to the dogs. I was happy. That's been jotted around for a while, and that's just nice to hear.
Another thing to add to that you guys might not know, but Frank is actually the person who builds all of the teams. And one of the things that makes Corte Madera a really standout is one of the reasons why we get people from Larkspur and outside Marin County area is that Frank puts forth all of the effort to keep kids with their friends as much as possible. Friend request is not something that's taken in a lot of other leagues. We still do that. And that's a really big difference between us and a lot of people from other areas. And that's a huge reason why people continue to come to us, even from other parts of Marin County, will move their kids all the way over here and run to make soccer practice so their kids can play with their friends. So we have some teams of completely different schools that are close to us, but just a little bit out of our area that just want to stay together. And so they come here to do that. And Frank does all of that work himself. And like he said, it's not about the money, but one thing that didn't make it into my report tonight is some of the figures on revenue from the last 3 years. So just really quick, in 2019, this clinic, just the clinic, has nothing to do with the fall league, is in 2019, they made $15,201.50. In 2020, especially because of COVID, they made $14,519. And this year alone, and we're still working on a couple people's registrations, but we've already made $112,000, $485. So, I mean, that's a huge increase for Parks and Rec for our budget.
Yeah, and the fall program, you know, the last 4 or 5 years has probably brought in about 100,000, somewhere around there, maybe more. So, I mean, if you look at the spring clinics, the summer camps, and the fall programs, I mean, we're contributing probably close to $200,000, you know, to the coffers of Park and Rec, which is, you know, an added plus. You know, that just happens. And I have to say this, is that we have the cheapest rates anywhere, both for our competitive teams and the recreation. If you look at Mill Valley or Tiburon, their rates are much higher. Ours are not. I've always been conscious of trying to keep price down. You know, competitive teams alone, most of these leagues charge you 15, 16 and up. And most of our competitive teams pay around $900, $800, $900. And that, you know, that's playing in the league, uniform, 3 tournaments, you know, the same as everybody else, and good training. So it's, you know, that's just the byproduct of it. You know, the thing that really is neat is just, I have to tell you that for me, one of the neatest things is on opening day, walking into Corte Madera Town Park. And the way we have it spread out, we have every single group playing. We must have 12 or 13 games going on at the same time. You've got your older kids here. You've got the younger kids down here, you know, 5th and 6th graders, 3rd and 4th graders, rec, competitive side by side. And on some days you've got 1,000 people in the park, parents watching. It's incredible sight. And I have to say that the venue of the park, to where you can have everybody there, is something nobody else has, and makes it really, really special. You know, most leagues, they have 1 field here, 2 fields there. You know, it's really all disjointed and spread out. I mean, we've got everything right here, and it's so neat. I mean, I have to tell you, it really, I always get chills the first day I show up to see that, you know?
Well, thank you very much to Frank and Christina for all of your work, and all great news. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I'd just like to say that, you know, from myself as a parent of 3 soccer players in the program and from the community, what a great job they did to put together a successful program this year. I don't think there were any incidents with COVID issues or transmissions. The kids had a great time. The trainers did a great job working with the restrictions that they had to maintain with, you know, no scrimmages and certain drills and everything. And the community of parents and kids is just so thankful that there was a program that was able to go on, and there was a way for kids to get out and be active and be physical and actually interact with each other.
No, thank you. You know, quite honestly, I didn't know we were going to be able to do anything, you know, but it just worked. And it's, you know, there's a lot of good people. The trainers are great. They made it fun for the kids. And think about this. I mean, the kids couldn't scrimmage, you know, they had to do a bunch of other things, and it still worked. So yeah, I'm pretty happy the way that turned out. Thank you.
I would just like to question the whether or not we do any scholarships. It looks like the money works out really well for the town, and I would love to see, first of all, if we do give cheap rates, relatively inexpensive rates, that we always have a box to check off where people can pay extra to help somebody play who might have a difficult time affording to play. I think this year with COVID especially, we should have a note that says we don't want to turn anyone away because of inability to pay, and we will try to find a way to help them. I would love to see, I mean, you talk about doing the best for the kids, and I think it's great that the kids get to play with their friends, but I also think that sports are an opportunity for our kids to experience some diversity. So, you know, I like the idea of there being kids from throughout Marin County, and I'm hoping some of them come from the Canal and from Marin City so that our kids do get the experience. I mean, I raised 3 kids here, and I did not realize until recently that everybody was white. It just, you know, fish know nothing about water, and sports are an opportunity for the kids to have some experience of diversity. So if we can up the scholarships and really make sure we're doing a really inclusive program, I think that would be the best thing for our kids. In addition to all the great things that you're already doing, just asking for one more.
Well, we don't have a box that says you can give more, although we can easily do that. But we don't turn anybody away if they can't pay. We've always given scholarships to people. And you know, there's some that need a full scholarship. There's some that can pay half. So we do work with them. I mean, but we've never ever turned anyone away because they can't play. However, we just don't get that many requests. I think in our recreation program, we've last year, if we got 5 or 6 requests, you know, the competitive is a little more, but even there, you know, it's 4, 5, 6 kids that we get requests from. But everyone that we do get a request from, we make it work, so that you know, however they can make it work.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other final questions? I see we don't have any other attendees. Is there anything in email from the public?
Just refreshing the public comment email. And no, we did not receive any emailed public comments.
Okay, thanks for that presentation. And thanks again to Christina and Frank for all their awesome work. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Get back to my screen. So the final, I'm muted. Final agenda item under presentations is 3C. And Commissioner Brown is going to speak about the orientation to the National Fitness Campaign and acceptance of 2 grants, 2 $25,000 grants. Take it away, Commissioner Brown.
My headset apparently is not working.
There, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Great. I am going to share a presentation. Director Howe and Chair Blomgren and I are on the steering committee for NFC, and I want to be sure that you are all familiar with what we're doing with them. And let's see, who can start sharing? Sharing, let me host. I think you need to allow me to share.
You should be able to. I made all of the commissioners co-hosts.
I'm getting just an advanced sharing option. Sorry about this glitch.
Yeah, it says all panelists can share. I'm not sure what happened with that.
Okay. Well, that's not convenient. I'm just getting an advanced sharing options box when I try to share my screen. So
that's usually when you have to click on the screen that you want to share and then you click share again.
Now it's coming up. Thanks. Sorry about that. All right. I think we had just started doing all this Zoom stuff. All right. So as Chair Blomgren said, we have been awarded 2 grants for the National Fitness Campaign. The National Fitness Campaign is a not-for-profit that is dedicated to building healthy infrastructure for cities. And the grants were written last year, and we optimistically went in and asked for 2, and we were awarded 2 out of a total of, I believe, 10 that were given. So what are these fitness courts? You may have seen the one that is in San Francisco's Marina Green. They are versatile, accessible, and free fitness, outdoor fitness that works for anybody at any level. And they give a full body workout for great fitness. And I want to give you, if we can, make this video link work, a little bit of a primer on what this is all about.
We're changing the way America thinks about fitness. With 200 fitness courts open, our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started.
We're still seeing this slide.
Magic, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979.
Lisa, I think we need to elect to share that screen.
Designed for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym.
We can hear it, we just can't see it.
7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. This year, 2,000 certified ambassadors.
Okay, the video link we'll provide later and give you an opportunity to look at it on your own, but it just brings to life this fitness court idea and how they are on a national effort to install these fitness courts across the country. So these fitness courts are kind of a prefabbed set size of 38 by 38. That's about half of the size of a tennis court. And all of the stations are pre-configured and give you an opportunity to work out your core, your upper body, and your lower body with a circuit of stations. This is a breakdown of what the court actually looks like. It's a flat structure with some installed elements and a wall on one end that supports some of the push, pull, and resistance activities. What's great about this fitness court is it really works for anybody at any age of any ability. You individualize your workout, but there are also group workouts, and it's supported by a free app that provides training, training routines, and an ability to track your fitness and your progress as you go forward. And part of what National Fitness Campaign does is trains ambassadors in the local area that can then go on to provide classes for the local community. There's a wide range of options in terms of graphics, and this is something where we have a lot of opportunity to partner with local businesses and others who might want to partner with us to finance this, to give them attribution on the fitness court. And I included here something that was done with Keith Haring artwork. This is a limited edition that National Fitness Campaign is rolling out in select cities, but it gives you the idea of how we might partner with even a local artist to feature their work on our fitness campaign graphics so that it works appropriately for the community. So there's a lot of flexibility here, from the super bright and highly branded to much more low key and integrated, like the CU Boulder graphic here. One of the things that National Fitness Campaign does, and they're very committed to, is a proprietary way that they analyze sites for each individual community. So they're looking for three things. They're looking for sites that are iconic, meaning well-known, visible, places that people will easily be able to identify if somebody says that there's a fitness court there. Accessibility, how easy is it to get to for people to participate? And connectivity, how does it connect with the rest of the healthy lifestyle infrastructure of a town or municipality? So they did this work for us using a variety of different tools and provided us with Corte Madera statistics on each of these three vectors. They looked at activity on the left here, the walking and biking concentration. So you can see it's color coded based on the highest to lowest activity level. And not surprisingly, you'll see that the areas that are delineated by bike and walking paths have the highest degree of activity going on an ongoing basis. In the middle, it's an equity map. This was important to us as we're thinking about how we roll out additional infrastructure for Corte Madera, that we ensure that we're providing equal access across our entire community. So this is mapped against household median income, and it's helpful for us as we think about where we want to place these fitness courts. And then they look at population density, and you can see across all of these, the little icons that are the fitness court logo are the places that, based on these three vectors, they're recommending we consider, and we have talked to them further about in conversations. There are three different sites that we're looking at within Corte Madera Town Park that might be possible locations for this fitness court at that 38 by 38 size. Jumping to the bottom, there's a site, and now actually possibly a second site over in the San Clemente Cove School area that could house a fitness court. And then the other one is a possible public-private partnership in the area that is the overflow parking lot for the village, recently paved over and used for the Larkspur drive-in movie theater recently over the summer. There might be a space there, and with the recently repaved biking path along that area, we think that that might be a good place again to have a place where people could get off their bike or take, you know, stop on their walk and get some additional fitness in. This is a quick snapshot view of the program summary, and we're here at the campaign funding support. We've done the strategic planning studies to identify the possible sites and think through the cost and how we might fund these. And I'll take you through the cost in just a minute. But we need to initiate some campaign funding support before we launch into a full commitment to NFC that we're going to work with both of these grants over the course of 2021 and into 2022. So from a budget standpoint, the program overall is, and this is a single court budget, is $130,000. That's for the fitness court itself, all of the infrastructure, all of the equipment, access to the app, training of ambassadors, and support for promotion and marketing. Each court comes with a $25,000 grant. So the local responsibility then for the program is $105,000. In addition to that, we have installation, and there are a variety of elements of installation, from, you know, the concrete slab to the assembly and the graphics. And this is one area where we think we may be able to find partners for in-house or in-kind services to help bring these costs down. But at a single court cost, the total budget is $165,700 if installation is at the highest level of cost. So doubling that, if we do the 2 courts, because we did receive grants for 2 courts, the local responsibility would go up to $331,400. So as we think about how to fund this and whether or not we want to go forward with it, we want to think through a couple of things. One is continuing to be a leader in the kinds of park and recreation services, infrastructure, and facilities that we provide to the community. If you look at the lower left here, you can see where within the Greater Bay Area, some of these fitness courts have already been installed. San Francisco has the Marina Green Court, which is perhaps the most iconic and visible. They put in a second one down at Mission Rock, and they're looking at putting in a third one at Lake Merced. So these have been very successful for the San Francisco community, and there are others scattered throughout the Greater Bay Area, but we could be the first of these courts in Marin County and help to, again, position Corte Madera as a leader in outdoor living and deliver for our residents a commitment to fitness. You know, we wish that this had been happening a year or 18 months ago, because even with COVID, these courts are able to be used with some limited numbers because each of the stations have social distance to them. So they're really a great way for people to get out and get some exercise in the fresh air that we enjoy on a nearly year-round basis, despite all the rain that we've had in the dog parks lately. So from a sponsorship and partnership opportunities standpoint, we see a couple of key opportunities and necessities to look outside of town budget to help fund these. One of them is the Corte Madera Community Foundation, and we've had an initial conversation with them about this, and there seems to be some appetite and interest in partnering with Park and Rec to make these fitness courts a reality. So we plan to present to the foundation at their March 8th meeting and hope to secure some sort of partnership from them, both in terms of a grant and possibly, if we decide to go out to community fundraise, to get their help and being our fiscal agent for that community fundraising. Because of the possible locations for these courts, both in Town Park and if we put one in the San Clemente Cove Park area, the Larkspur Corte Madera School District is another obvious place for us to go, because there would be mutual benefit to having the courts in those locations, and we would like to find a way to work with them closely to install these courts. Then there are also local businesses, individuals who might decide to provide us with a grant, a donation, and possibly artists who would be interested in having their graphics featured. So we should look at all of those, and we have already started a list of places and businesses to approach for this offset funding. And then finally, fundraising. We can go out to the community as a whole and look to raise money to make this happen. And maybe we want to do that in some way that's tied to fitness, doing a fun run or a bike event or something where we get people out and exercising and paying some sort of entry fee, and that could be towards the cost of putting these courts in. Okay, any questions?
Commissioner Brown, before we take questions, would you like me to try to share the last bit of the closing video?
Yes.
Okay, let me share the screen and I'll do a closing video and then we'll take questions. Can everyone see the screen? All right.
We're changing the way America thinks about fitness. With 200 fitness courts open, our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm Mitch Menadgett, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. This year, 2,000 certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our National Fitness Campaign. We'll also be hosting training camps on college campuses across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs, learn the moves, and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support free fitness. Wherever fitness is a priority, you can find a fitness court. Building beyond 200 cities and colleges, we're now partnering with large cities using urban movement data to map the best locations for pedestrian infrastructure. We're bringing fitness courts to within 10 minutes of population centers everywhere. We're now committed to raise $150 million to bring the campaign to 1,000 cities and schools, building the largest fitness movement in the world. Join us and let's make world-class fitness free.
Thank you, Director Howe.
I'm happy to take any questions or comments. One thing I'll point out from our conversations is that the way this potential project is developing is a little unusual in that something like the dog park or the basketball court were essentially generated from within the Parks and Rec mission and with Director Howe. And in this case, this project sort of came with the support of, I think, some or all of the town council and the town manager. So we're already seeing support from that level, but nonetheless, the calendar we worked out, this would be something that we'd want to flesh out and potentially vote to endorse or not endorse at our next monthly meeting. But it may seem well developed for hearing about this for the first time, and I just wanted to let you know why that is. Well, no comments on a presentation is usually a good sign or a bad sign. I'll say it's a good sign in this case, in that you were clear about all the things we're looking at and what we're trying to do here. So thank you for that. I don't think we have anyone from the public.
And we did not receive any emailed public comments on this item.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Commissioner Brown. And if there's no questions, we will move on. And as I said, at our next monthly meeting, March 22nd, this will be something that we'll want to look at. And if we are in fact behind it, we will want to have a formal vote and endorse it to send it to town council. We're fleshed out a tentative schedule that time will tell with all these schedules, of course, but it would potentially end up at a town council meeting in April, and then potential for actually going out and bidding in the next steps and the review and award and work in this calendar year. So that's when we were looking at this, we were seeing if all the steps could fit into the 2021 calendar year, and they currently can. And one thing we can do if we are behind this is to be able to provide a recommendation to town council. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our consent calendar. We're looking to approve the draft minutes of the January 25th, 2021 regular commission meeting. If there are any comments or corrections to that, go ahead and speak up. And if not, we can get a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, please mark those as approved. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, business items. There are none this month, and that brings us to agenda item number 6, which is staff update and commissioner reports. So we'll start with director update with Director Howe.
Sure. One quick question for Rebecca. Do we need to have all the commissioners go through and approve, or is it good?
The minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I typically do a roll call vote.
Yeah, pardon me. We usually vote for that.
Thank you for catching that. It's just hard when everybody is on a square on a screen. Commissioner Brown?
Approved.
Commissioner Elson?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles is absent. Commissioner Phipps?
Yes.
Commissioner Ravazio?
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Janowski?
Yes.
And Chair Blomgren?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. And now back to Director Howe for the update.
Sure. We'll begin with weekly community outreach. And then this is an update from Perry, who does the majority of the senior calls, along with Nancy, who's doing those remotely. There was 65 weekly calls averaged now, about 10 biweekly, and a couple of monthly preferences. And they average 3 thinking of you cards they send out when they feel that somebody needs a little extra boost or just a little extra attention and reminder that they're important to us. Thinking about organizing a few wellness checks to seniors, and that's discussed between Nancy and Perry, and the possibility of kind of doing that extra outreach and possibly engaging the NRG so that it's a neighbor to neighbor community effort. With that, some of the suggestions that have come from these seniors directly is starting a puzzle and book exchange program. We're currently collecting donations, and the donations are being organized by genre right now, and they'll be ready to share when it's safe to do so and invite our seniors and active older adults to come back to the community center. Corte Madera Day Camp and potential schedule changes for the April 12th with Larkspur Corte Madera School District. There's going to be a possible 2 p.m. dismissal or so, and our programming time will be adjusted, and that will also be adjusted later for classes. They recently added a 4th cohort, so that's a big deal. That's been a big goal for us to keep expanding, because that means that we're meeting and supporting the community needs. And sessions are now organized into 4-week increments. So right now it's been working out to monthly. As we go into the next couple months, it's going to be just on a 4-week basis because our months are longer. Dog Park and Town Park. Recent community feedback. You heard Mike speak at the last meeting from Code Enforcement and Communications, and he was able to engage one of the regular dog walkers that's been seen by some of our local residents that have at least 2 dogs off leash in the path by the low canal. And so he was able to educate and enter that person's name into CMPA's reminder list so that people have been contacted, and warn him that next time there will be a citation for off leash use. Also an exciting thing for Mike, he shared that he would be hiring some part-time code enforcement officers, and he has one that's starting this week. So he's beginning by orientating himself to our staff, our offices, our facilities in town, and then getting to know our policies. And then he will be later identifying at least one weekend day that he'll be able to be on site. So that would be supporting not only some of the challenges that we've had in community park, or not community park, but town park related to the dogs, but also noise violations and building permits and everything else that's really needed some extra effort. So that'll be a huge help to Mike and to the rest of us to just really make sure that we're following through. We've been saying people are going to get cited, and I think that once we start citing people, then we're going to see a change in behavior, and I think that that is going to be really helpful for all of us. Town park, the feedback was discussed from RJ and from Jared on your mulch and winter operational plans. And I think it was extremely helpful for them to have laid out the 5 different options as well as the hybrid solutions. And I was very impressed by the 5 and 10-year maintenance impacts as well. I think that really helps provide a lot of background, a lot of good thought and discussion going into future steps and decisions on what we recommend to council going forward. Digital activity guide. The next one's going to be covering March through May, and I hope to have that out this week, beginning of next week at the very latest. Inside of it, it's going to be the holiday activities. So for the next few months, we have classes beginning for all ages. We have a California Watercolor Association art exhibition that's going to be online. And I've mentioned that before. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do anything in person because they really needed to make that call, and the artists weren't comfortable having in-person time. So we are following what they need, and we're ready for them to come back next year or later in the year if they'd like to exhibit in person. But in the meantime, we will be broadcasting everything on our website and linking through, and we will still be taking 70% or 30% of the commission for sales. So that is a revenue generator for the department as well. Let's see, soccer and adult softball will be returning. Baseball diamonds are being prepared for this week for play, so that Little League, as soon as they're able to get back out there and do competition, they are able to do so. In April, I know that we have a lot of adults in the community that are ready to get back on the field for softball. So we're planning a 10-game season for them and seeing how it goes, and maybe expanding that after. Let's see, we also have a section that's dedicated to reminders and department messages. That's a good opportunity for if the commission has anything that they'd like to remind or highlight. It's areas that we want to focus on that are code enforcement or citation reminders. Also anything that's tier related, at least the flexibility of having a digital activity guide, we can add information right up until the last minute. We can even republish a new document if we needed to refresh the data if things have changed. A couple of highlights for you with sports that are specific of interest to us in the recreation department. So not necessarily some of our athletic groups that utilize our fields as rentals, but for us as a department, sports allowed to resume in competitive and inter-team play by tier color. Red, we have Little League, softball, doubles, outdoor pickleball, and gymnastics. And orange, we have basketball outdoors, soccer outdoors, and volleyball. And then yellow, we have basketball indoors. So related to our CYO use, we have our in-house soccer program. These are all things, the color tiers are when they're able to do competition. They are able to do practice and conditioning like they have been during the entire pandemic. So I just wanted to highlight that for everyone. So exciting things coming up. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the commissioner reports. The first is update from recent town council meetings. February was Commissioner Phipps.
Right, I attended both meetings and there were no items on the agenda regarding Park and Rec and no discussion of Park and Rec issues. So uneventful for us.
Thank you for being there. Appreciate that. The Executive Advisory Committee did not meet. That is myself and Commissioner Janowski. We did meet for the fitness courts, and you got that update from Commissioner Brown. The Parks and Rec Master Plan Committee, we had a progress update with the community survey, which is attached. And the idea was that we would review and approve if we want to of that document. I don't know if you've all had a chance to see it.
Maybe I can give a little context here too. We've reached out to consultants to provide us with an RFP to provide us with proposals to field the survey and do the data analysis and resulting recommendations. And we provided the community survey that was attached to the agenda packet as our best effort at this point of what we would like to learn from the community as part of the master planning process. But we have indicated to them that from a methodology standpoint and also from a specific question standpoint, we're open to their input. Director Howe and I had a Q&A session with 3 of the consultants who responded that they would be providing us with proposals last week, and we're expecting proposals in on March 1st, and we've committed that we would make a decision on the consultant we'd like to use by March 12th, with the goal of fielding the survey as quickly thereafter as possible so that we can proceed with getting the insights and the information and the feedback from the community to inform the master plan process this spring. So we would like to get any feedback, comments, questions that you have on the community survey to inform the process.
Does anybody prefer to have it on the screen while you go through anything?
And it is attached to the agenda if you have the agenda open as well. The one thing that I thought was very valuable in that draft survey is that there's a number of items where the questions mirror existing questions that were asked back in 2006, so we can compare how things have changed. And I think it's worth noting that back in 2006, there was no sort of digital outreach going on at all. And now, as Christina described, there's a quickly growing Facebook cohort and others where we could probably reach a lot more people and get a lot greater response on something like this. It is a detailed survey, but I don't know, I tend to think people have fun once they get started doing something like this. They tend to get to the end of it.
The other thing to add is from a process standpoint, what we would like to do is get the results of this survey back and then report back not only to the commission, but the town council and then the community at large, what the findings were, and use those to facilitate some deeper conversations and feedback sessions with the community. It's a little tough right now because we can't do those sessions in person, but something like what was done for all of the meetings with the community around the town hall redesign. We would like to do something like that where we invite the community to come in and talk about not only the findings of the survey, but the implications and what we might do as a result. We think the transparency and the openness is going to be really critical.
And for tonight's agenda, Commissioner Brown, can you reiterate, would you like approval to go forward with the questions as they are asked, or do you want approval to move forward to select one of the consultants to do the survey?
I'd like to have any comments and feedback on the survey instrument so that we can incorporate anything that we may have missed that the commission wants to know more about as we go through this process. And then would also, I guess I would like to get the commission's approval for us to select a vendor to conduct the survey once we have the proposals in and we consider the costs and their methodology and their expertise, if that can be done outside of a council meeting, commission meeting.
And the first question that pops to mind, if we can't go through specific comments right now at this meeting, is that people could provide within the coming days written comments back to you, but in some sort of forum where it would be available to the public to see what the commissioners were saying in their comments as part of the public record. So I don't know, Rebecca, if there's a clear way we can do something like that.
I think if you all send your comments to one person, such as myself or Ashley, and not to the commissioners themselves, then you avoid the serial communication issue of Brown Act adherence.
Yeah. So would you or Ashley prefer we send them to one or the other of you?
It can be both. It can't the other commissioners.
Okay, so how about that for the ask is that any commissioners that have comments or clarifications on the questionnaire itself, send those directly to Rebecca and Ashley and not to other commissioners.
I have one question. Louise, do we know yet what we're going to be putting out of pocket for these consultants? Do we have a number yet?
No.
Okay, so I would say, you know, as much as I don't want this process to take any longer than it's already taking, I think we're going to need to have an actual proposal with a dollar number attached to it before we can. I mean, unless you want to have an up to a certain amount. I mean, I totally trust Louise and Ashley to choose the right person here. We've designated Louise from our group to do this, but I think without a number attached to it, I mean, I was thinking I would move that we just allow you to choose somebody, but I think without a number attached to it, we really can't do that yet. Just my thought. I don't know.
I agree with your observation, your suggestion, Commissioner Ravazio. I think originally our ask was to move forward on the survey, but as we're coming down to a timeline, I think that Commissioner Brown was hoping to be able to act quickly. But I agree that we should have an up to a certain amount to have the commission approve. Unfortunately, we don't have an estimated, we don't even have a ballpark of what this would cost.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So whether we come back and do a special meeting and talk about that, I think that's another option. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Having a special meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is an option.
So it would be March 22nd.
In-house is always an option. We've done, I think, most of our other surveys in-house, and it's just analyzed by staff and a subcommittee of commissioners. But
is the staff available? Do you think you have staff time to do that? We were trying to not load you up with any more than you've already got.
No, I don't think that we are set up to be able to do that as effectively and efficiently as we would like to, and as this project warrants. The methodology was primarily phone calls last time, and we really wanted to utilize all the platforms available to us. And we are by far not the experts in surveying, let alone, consolidating the data into reportable and valuable information for the commission to consider as going forward with this process.
I agree, especially when it comes to the fact that we're comparing where we are now to where we were 7 years ago. It does make it a little more complicated, and I think that's why we elected to explore these out of staff consultants. So, yeah.
So we will have proposals in on the 1st of March. So I think it sounds like we have possibly two paths. One would be to have a special meeting where we could, as a commission, discuss the various proposals and maybe come to an agreement on which path forward. And the other would be to wait until the March 22nd meeting to do that.
That's correct.
I think that's right. And I think if in the meantime, as I suggested earlier, anybody gets their comments into Rebecca and Ashley, and maybe Commissioner Brown, as soon as you hear those proposals, we can discuss whether or not it makes sense to have a meeting before the 22nd, unless we think right now that we want to schedule something and make sure that we can all be on for a meeting before the 22nd. But it is only 8 days away.
Special meeting.
It's only 8 days away, so maybe we could wait and see what those numbers are, and have a better idea if we want to push it ahead or wait another, what would it be, 3 weeks for that meeting, for the following meeting.
And if the chair of the executive committee directs us to, we can always send out a doodle poll with 3 or 4 preferred times and dates, and then try and get consensus on a special meeting if we need to.
Okay, well, maybe in case that is the route to go, I hate to be the monkey wrench in Commissioner Brown's work here and slow things down. So maybe if we could do that, if you or the director could throw out a doodle poll and something, maybe you could help with this number, Commissioner Brown, on dates, but if we were to get those bids on the 1st and have several days or a week to digest them, and maybe a week later, somewhere around the 7th or 8th, have a special meeting to press forward, that could save you a couple of weeks at least.
That'd be great. The 8th is a Monday, so if we look sometime that week to possibly pull a quick special meeting together, that would be great.
And we can be flexible with normal 6:30 slot, or we can move it around. It would be, I think, a very short one. So if we could throw that poll out there, that would be great. And hopefully we can get a quorum and get the support we need to move forward.
I will initiate a doodle poll to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on this issue while we're on it?
I hate, Nate, I hate to, I mean, just to maybe save Ashley a step, would we want to just try to do like Monday the 8th as a placeholder and just save Ashley or Rebecca the time? Well, since we're all on here.
I'm okay for that.
I'm checking my calendar.
Yeah, we could definitely do that now. They're just, I wasn't sure if people didn't have access to their calendars readily available, but there are a lot of offered comments about whether that
figured, you know, why put off till tomorrow what you can do today?
Yeah, personally, Monday the 8th would work for me.
It works for me.
It works for me.
Sounds like we got a quorum.
Yeah, I think the only thing on the 8th is that we're going to probably be asked to be at the Community Foundation meeting to present the fitness court idea, but I think their meeting starts earlier at 5:30.
Yeah,
so.
they're at 5. They start at 5.
5. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's pencil that in for 6:30 on March 8th.
Perfect.
Thank you all for your flexibility and willing to put in yet another meeting for your volunteer work. Thank you. All right, thank you for that. That's great. What next?
The second portion of it, I'll kind of introduce it while Commissioner Brown is making note of the meeting, is the National Fitness Campaign. And that was discussed during presentation 3C, and considering and recommending the town manager authorize an acceptance letter. So a procedural portion of accepting the grants that we applied for is to sign a letter that is non-binding and non-committing, but it's just a community, yes, we're accepting this and we're planning to move forward on these courts. If for some reason we're not able to fund the courts, we are not obligated to go forward. There's no loss of money to the town. There's no giving money back. So we just wanted to have the commission's consent for Todd to move forward and sign that as our town manager.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion to vote on a recommendation that the town manager authorize that acceptance letter?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign that letter.
Second that.
Second.
Okay, if we could take a vote.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Elson?
Yes.
Commissioner Miles? Commissioner Phipps?
Yes.
Commissioner Ravazio?
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Janowski?
I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Oh.
Chair Blomgren?
Yes. Thank you for that procedural reminder. And that moves us to the last of the commissioner reports, which would be individual commissioner updates. So anything that anyone has on Parks and Rec matters.
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah, I do. I'm going to try to share my screen here if I can. Did that do it?
Not yet.
Let's see.
No, when you share, you click on share and then you click on what you want to share and then you click share again.
Oh, share again. Okay, let's see if that works.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I know this has been a big agenda tonight. There's been a lot going on, so I'm going to talk this very quickly through here. I've been doing some research on community gardens, and there are lots of good signs pointing to the possibility that this really could happen, and it's very exciting. I have spent some time with Stephen Connor, who is the man who runs the very popular Larkspur program. They currently have 73 plots with a wait list of, I don't know, 15 to 20, he said so far. And they also have an orchard, over 20 fruit trees, that all of the people who work in the garden get to share the crops of the fruit trees. And poking around with just asking questions of staff and talking to other people, it does look like this area directly across from the Tam Ridge Residences apartments and right next to, oh gosh, the name is escaping me right now, Sandpiper. These areas where there is very little room for people to garden, that this area is looking like it could be a very popular and very functional garden space for us. It's located right next to the bike path. There's no red flag so far on this property. At one point it was earmarked for affordable housing, but the town is not interested in keeping that on its available housing list right now. There's strong volunteer support. We have looked at the Larkspur program. There's 2 or 3 volunteers working with me so far, and we really did review the Larkspur program and think it's so good that we basically can clone it. Stephen Connor is consulting with us. There is another long-time gardener and very well-liked Twin Cities preschool instructor, Jay Ferreira, who's been a master gardener, who is also very interested in supporting this project. And he actually works now for Larkspur Public Works. So a lot of good things are coming together to possibly make this look like a real possibility. I won't go into all of the detail. As far as funding, oh, just one note on the Larkspur Gardens, I'd like to say they recently, a few years back, changed their criteria. So they only really allow Larkspur residents to participate in this. So Corte Madera is the only community in Marin with no community gardens at all. There's 130 different gardens throughout the county. So I would really like to see us figure a way to make this happen. The idea here along the Porter Cooley Dam is that there could be on the north side, so they don't shade the gardens, a row of fruit trees that could be within the fenced in area, and could be really pretty and environmentally advantageous in many ways. We do have to avoid the south side of the pathway where there are some sensitive grassy areas that I guess are some environmental interest. And as far as funding goes, I mean, it's obvious we're seeing this confluence of all these great opportunities in town and limited funding dollars. So one possibility is to work to pitch the McFarland Company on getting involved. They're the ones who own Tam Ridge Residences. We might be able to get some financial participation from them, and also the possibility of grants. And there are a lot of organizations really promoting community gardens, not just as a community builder and a community opportunity for people to connect, but to really build knowledge and deep-seated community awareness and wisdom about growing your own food. Stephen Connor teaches almost everybody who comes to do a garden ends up getting a lesson in how to do it. We are hoping there would never be pesticides or any inorganic materials, especially because this is in an environmentally sensitive area. And so my main concern here, and I would love to just hear some feedback from you guys, is Corte Madera volunteers on this issue are kind of twice burned. There's been 2 major presentations. Rebecca just forwarded to me plans, some of them I had not seen before, that had really been, a lot of time and effort had been put into them, and then it ended up going nowhere. And so I'm trying to do kind of a, big toe in the water right now to see if there's going to be any real objections from Parks and Rec to start with, from you guys, And then also if there's anything from the community, and then just any direction you have as to sort of how to keep pushing this ball forward. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing that's not on community gardens, Saturday, March 20th, we are having live music at Cafe Verde with Sally Dominguez and Rich Benyon. They're playing for free as a way to celebrate spring and bring our community back together. So we will be doing social distancing, and we're actually having the band face a new direction. They'll actually face out into the park. So it will be able to be open even if we get a good turnout. So that's all from me.
Great, thanks very much. Any other commissioner updates?
How do I unshare now?
I think I can do that for you.
Oh, can you? Thanks. Maybe I just go out. Did that work? Okay.
Yeah. No other comments? Okay, that moves us to agenda item 7, routine and other matters. The first is 7A, discussion of potential future agenda items. Is there anything that don't currently have agendized that we want to get on future agenda, March 22nd or other?
You know, maybe we should put the community gardens on the agenda for March so that I can see what I can do between now and then to kind of get some more direction from staff and from our Larkspur partners, because they are willing to partner with us. So maybe I'll even be able to get him to come and answer some questions.
Is there an update on the status of the Bayside garden that was in the works with?
Yeah, so that's a Cove School project. So that I'm worried that might be conflicting with the sport court. Louise, I'm not sure what they're planning there, but Tanya Coneg is working directly with Cove School on that. So that's a different project, and it's really not so much a community garden as it is a school educational garden with some community participation, I guess, on weekends and so forth. So even if there are community aspects to it, I think having one on both sides of town, one thing that we've learned from the dog park is that putting up a fence is a fairly inexpensive way to bring community together, and a garden is basically a fence with some raised beds in it and some water and some great rules and volunteer commitments. It's been an amazing community that they've built over there in Larkspur. Everybody has to commit to work, and they also do social events twice a year, and it's really just a great community builder for a pretty small investment. So I'm hoping you guys will get behind it. I'm hoping that the Parks and Rec won't be, I don't think we've ever really been the obstacle, but it's gone down before because of lack of support. So, and if you're not going to support it, please let me know before we spend, a lot more time trying to see what we can do to make it happen. Would really love a heads up, either privately or I don't know whether we're allowed to do that or not. Brown Act.
I mean, I didn't comment as you discussed that before because it wasn't on the agenda, so we're not supposed to have a full discussion of it, but maybe something clarifying as far as a future agenda item goes. If Director Howe could speak to how a community garden might fit into her programs, because my impression was that when we had talked about this previously and when other volunteers had come to our meetings, the suggestion had been that Public Works or Town Council was the venue for moving something like this.
Right. Now we have had indication that Public Works is interested in doing this. But in fact, and even though I totally get that Ashley does not want to be involved in developing, managing, or running this program, and she would not have to be, and no Parks and Rec staff would be required to make this happen. However, the current program in Larkspur is under Larkspur Parks and Recreation. So that means as Larkspur and Corte Madera merge, the community gardens in Larkspur is already under Ashley. And so you're already sort of de facto in charge of it. But as you can see from the volunteers and the people working on it, it doesn't really require any staff time. The only requirement that the town and hopefully Parks and Rec would provide is to just take in the people lease the plots, people rent out the plots, and that money then goes towards maintenance and so forth for public works. So the only thing that Parks and Rec would really need to do is what Parks and Rec in Larkspur currently does, which is accept the lease payments from the gardeners and hold that money for the town to use in whatever way the town sees fit. The difference is that this location is not in an actual park already. So it could be that this is somehow different and totally removed from parks. There's been a suggestion that we look at rezoning it so that it is committed as public open space and maybe even parkland, so that we don't get the gardens up and running and then suddenly have to lose control of them.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
yeah, we're verging into discussion territory.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Right. I think as far as our goal of setting agenda items, I think maybe it is fair to add that to the agenda for next month, especially with the specific purpose of understanding how a community garden would fit in to the town management. And maybe Director Howe could do a little homework and let us know. Sorry to give you another assignment, but about whether or not this is something that would involve us. I don't want us to start agendizing something that's out of our lane in the long run. So I just want to make sure that we understand this is something that we should even be discussing in the first place.
There are a couple steps first. I believe from talking to staff, if you wanted to discuss this particular site, you'd have to address the issue of lack of available parking for the participants in the sites to, you know, I see a lot of people at the Larkspur ones unloading their wagons into their pulley wagons and wheeling their stuff over to their plot. You'd have to talk to the owners of the Tamil Plaza offices. You'd have to talk to the Tam Ridge residences, possibly DMV, possibly the Casa Madera HOA.
We did receive an indication that the immediately adjacent office building would be willing to allow us use of a couple, 3-4 parking spaces on the weekends. So most of the trips to the gardens, I understand, are made by people on bikes or walking with, you know, maybe a garden tool in their pocket. Other than the big planting days and the big soil preparation days, there isn't a lot of vehicle traffic. It's mostly people coming in, and it's because that's on a walking path. We think that it will help people either bicycle there or pull their wagons there.
And then the other issue would be staff time and public works maintenance staff, and whether or not that could be worked into their existing schedules right now. Right. Out of COVID.
But again, keep in mind, this is a volunteer. Yeah. This is a volunteer run program. And if we clone the Larkspur program, it is virtually, there's no staff. What Public Works in Larkspur does for the Larkspur Gardens is if a fence breaks down or a gate is broken or there's a water leak or something like that.
Right, but this is going to be a new entity that Public Works would need to manage and maintain.
Right. But
we really need to work on the staffing levels that are kind of limited for the next 18 months or so coming out of COVID and having so much.
I don't know that this is a real short-term thing. I'm not talking about getting these gardens planted this spring. Okay, no. We're talking a year long or maybe longer. Don't worry. Like I said, you can always say slow down.
I would suggest not talk about this any further. This is not on the agenda. So
okay,
let's put it on the agenda.
My apologies.
Let's put it on the agenda for next month.
Great.
And with the specific purpose of understanding how something like a community garden in this or another location would be approved and how it would be administered. So we can at least start to understand if Parks and Rec would have any role in it whatsoever.
That is a good question, whether or not this is whether this should be totally done outside of Parks and Rec
So let's start there. And there's
Yeah.
obviously other questions, but until we know that we're supposed to be involved, I don't think we should have public discussions about it. Thank you for bringing it up, though.
Okay.
And what else do we have? For February, we always have the Commission Strategic Planning and Goals discussion. I would suggest that we certainly have that in all of our meetings, and we've done a lot of that tonight. But if there's any other strategic planning goals issues that anyone would like to bring up, now is the time. Okay, hearing none. So we're nearing the end. I'll just point out that for next month in March, the 3 items specific to March are 1, the budget, 2, the summer brochure preview, and 3, the reorganization of the commission, which is selecting a chair and vice chair at the end of the meeting. I will offer that I am glad to be in the role of chair continuing after that, but I would also offer that anybody else who wants to do it, please do it. And I would love to have you do it. But like I said, I'll be happy to continue if no one else is interested. I'm not gonna get in a knife fight over that one, that's for sure.
I would like to quickly comment. I'll reach out to the executive committee, but about possibly moving the summer brochure preview, because that is aligned with when we printed the activity guide, and we would be more like looking for debuting our summer brochure in May. But I'll check in with the executive committee.
Okay, that's great. And then the final is Commissioner Ravazio covering March Town Council meetings. And that brings us to agenda item number 8, which is our adjournment. Our next regular meeting is March 22nd, 2021, with our interim meeting on March 8th, 2021 at 6:30 to look at the approval to move forward with the budget that we discussed. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.